Hello, good evening. Welcome to the first live stream I've done in a while, actually. Sorry that I'm 13 minutes late for everybody who was waiting. I was having some problems getting this to work. Please let me know if anything is wrong. It keeps telling me that the Hangout has had an error loading the app, and it's done it again. I don't know what to do about this problem. Can you still see and hear me? I'm going to assume yes, although it's unclear to me from the control thing that I have here. Anyway, you may have noticed there hasn't been a vlog today. This is instead of that. There wasn't one last week either. I've been busy. And I wanted to talk today about my leaving my last job, being unemployed, looking for a new job. And finding a new job. I'll come back to that point in a few minutes. I'll just talk through what's happened so far, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. So the chat, wherever it is on the screen, use that, and I'll do my best to scroll through and pick out some things to talk about. Also, I'm sorry that this quality is pretty low. This is a 2012 laptop. What can I do? Anyway, to give everyone context, this has all been covered in vlogs, but probably you haven't seen them all. And just so everyone's on the same page, I graduated from Cambridge with a degree in computer science in 2015, and I went straight into a job at Gray's as a software developer, full stack developer, mainly working on the website. So I was a web developer for the most part. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really good first job. I learned so much about large scale software development. I went from having all this theoretical knowledge in my head to being able to write production quality code. So it was super useful. About a year and a half in, I started to think about what I wanted to do after that. And I always thought 2 years was probably a good length of time to spend at my first job, because in London there were so many opportunities, and to not go after something new seemed like a shame. So that's what I did. I started interviewing at other places, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted. I thought I wanted to join a startup. I thought that would have been really fun and exciting. I would have got a lot of responsibility, being able to learn loads of things. And I took a job at a startup called Attest, and I started there in September last year. And I didn't really enjoy it. I made a video about this where I went into a lot more detail about why I wasn't happy there and why I decided to leave. And I stayed for, I was just under 3 months. I had a 3-month probation period, and that's the time when mainly the company assesses you. And if you're not doing your job properly, then they can fire you with like 1 week's notice. But it's also a chance for me and for the employee to see if the job is a good fit as well. And for me, it wasn't. I took that opportunity and I left. If I'd stayed longer, then I would have had a 3-month notice period. So I wouldn't have been able to just leave like instantly the way I did. It would have doubled my time there if they enforced the full notice period on me. Then I left and I had nothing else lined up, and I was unemployed. And that was weird. I had nothing to do. All of December, all of January, and half of February. And I know we're now into April. This is all a bit behind. You should expect this from me by now. So I spent these few months interviewing, trying to find something new. I had a much better idea about what I wanted. And I went through a lot of interviews, phone interviews, coding challenges, in-person interviews, and eventually I got a few offers, and it was a really tough decision choosing between I had 2 ultimately that I was trying to decide between. But I accepted a job at Monzo, where I've now been working for about 6-7 weeks, I think now. So I suppose that is the announcement of this week. That's what the vlog would have been about if I had any footage from that. So I'm no longer unemployed. The next vlog will be an employed vlog. of me starting my job at Monzo. But I'm not going to talk too much about that yet. I want to like step back a couple of months and talk about the whole experience of trying to find a job, particularly trying to do it while unemployed. A lot of people told me it was a terrible idea. Um, it's it's worked out okay, but it's good to reflect on some of the things that happened and think about whether it was the right choice. So I I never intended to leave my last job after 2 months. You don't go into a job thinking that. It's wasn't ideal. It wasn't ideal for me. It wasn't ideal for the company. It's not a situation I wanted to be in. But the end of my probation period was really quickly approaching, and I had to make a decision. And like I said, I didn't want to be. I've been there just under 3 months. Didn't want to be there another 3 months because I knew I didn't want to be there. I knew I wasn't going to stay. Uh, and I was in a position financially where I could support myself for a few months, so that wasn't a concern for me. I appreciate uh, people generally can't do that. So I think I was quite lucky in that respect. A lot of people told me though that I got mixed opinions about whether it's a good idea to leave a job without having something lined up. I think it's better if you do, probably. The advantages of not though are you have a lot of time to think about what you want and go to interviews and focus on finding a new job. It's really hard to fit all of that around having a full-time 9 to 6 job. You have no time left and you have to start taking holidays, and people suspect things, and it's all very awkward, very uncomfortable, very difficult, very time consuming and very tiring. So having nothing else to do except find a job, it was brilliant. It gave me so much time to invest in it and find the best thing for me, and I think I have done. I'm really happy at Monzo so far. What am I doing at Monzo? Eddie asks. I'm a back-end engineer, uh, so it's not web-based stuff anymore, which is what I've always done. So that's really interesting. For anyone who doesn't know, Monzo is a bank. It's a startup bank. It's one of a few at the minute, and we're building a bank from scratch in a really modern way to give a really great customer experience. So it's a really cool, exciting product that I'm really enjoying working on. I now use it as my bank. I would recommend it to other people. Um, but so yes, having all this time was useful to find this, and I'm grateful for being in that position. I probably wouldn't have chosen to do it. Like if I'd had more opportunity to look for something and stay at my last job, I probably would have. I was sort of thrown into this unemployment very quickly, and it took longer than I expected to find a job. I was thinking I'll have a contract signed by Christmas, and like start of January, I'll have a new job. Start of January, I had like nothing, not even any offers, and all through January, still nothing. It wasn't until February started finally getting offers. I got a few rejections, I got a few offers. A few companies never got back to me, still haven't in some cases. And a few I turned down. Some during the interviews, some before I started, just because by that point I had an offer from Monzo and I didn't really want to continue with more jobs I was less interested in. I just saw, sorry, it's already scrolled off the screen. Somebody asked if I was being paid like my full salary during my probation period. Yes. Probation periods and notice periods, you get paid normally. That's generally how it works. I'm not aware of it being any different for anybody. But it's interesting going for interviews while you don't have a job, because it's the first thing that every interviewer asks me. Why did you leave your last job, and what are you doing now? And it's difficult to answer the question. General advice I got was don't say bad things about your previous company. I think that is good advice. Don't do that. Even if I if you are in a position where you genuinely have bad things to say about your previous company, I didn't, for the record. But even if I did, I don't think it would have done me any favors. You want to be honest, but you don't want to just badmouth people that you've worked with in the past. I don't think it reflects very well on you. What was useful though was to have a a set of things that I was looking for in a job that I wasn't getting at my last job that I could get from the new job. And just being as clear as possible. So, like, having thought that through and being able to give a really clear and concise answer to that question. And this is what I didn't know when I was looking for a job about a year ago when I was still at Grace. I didn't really know what I wanted. I knew I wanted something different, something challenging, but I didn't know what that was. What I've learned is that I want a bigger company. The startup I went to is about 15 people, far too small for me. Monzo, on the other hand, is a startup, but it's got 300 people. And I find that like the perfect size. It's a great environment to work in. I so yeah, having these answers ready for the interviewers was the thing that I think saved me in those interviews. Although loads of people were like, "You'll look really bad to interviewers. It's going to be this red flag on your CV that you left your last job after just a couple of months. Nobody will want to employ you." That's not true. Um, it's it's just not the case. Employers don't look at you and immediately discard you because you quit your last job. I think it is more worrying if somebody sticks with a job for months, years, even that they don't like. Uh, to me, that doesn't make sense, and I'd wonder why this person was doing that. Because obviously, it's important to have a commitment to your company, but if you don't like what you're doing, it's I think it's very difficult to be doing it to the best of your ability and be a good asset to the business. Also, it's important to have a commitment to yourself to do the right thing for you and for your career. And if you're not, uh, that to me is slightly concerning. So I think it was okay actually to look at my situation and assess and say like this is not what I want to do, and make the decision to find the thing that I do want to do. Are there any questions that I can start answering? I always struggle to to try to talk and read the questions at the same time, so I apologize if I'm silent for about 20 seconds. Does the fact that you're a Cambridge graduate help your prospects in getting a job? Asks Swepsy. Swepk. So I have no idea how to pronounce some of these names. I'm sorry. Good question. I don't know. I I think it helps with getting an interview. It helps with that first stage because it's something on your CV that makes your CV a bit better. And it's not just Cambridge that this is true of. Other universities, obviously Oxford, probably like Durham, I guess, Imperial. The top universities. I think it's going to help. Once you've got an interview, once you pass that first hurdle of being considered, I don't think it helps anymore. At that point, it's totally down to how you do in the interviews and what the interviewers think of you as a person, and as a prospective candidate for the role. It obviously depends on the person. Interviewing is probably a very unfair thing. It varies wildly between different companies. Generally, I don't think it helps that much beyond somebody just seeing your CV and being like, "Oh, Cambridge, that's probably good," and continuing to read. But you could replace that with so many other things that get their attention instead. I don't think I don't think I've ever been given a job because I went to Cambridge. You get given a job because you're good at the job, regardless of where you went to university or whether you even went to university at all. I work with a lot of engineers now, like software developers, who don't have a degree. So it's honestly, it doesn't matter. You have to just be good at what you do and be able to demonstrate that on paper and in coding tests and in interviews. Difficult to do, I know, but you it, and that yeah, that long-winded answer to my question. Ultimately, I think it's not um, the thing that gets me the job. Unfortunately for me, but probably the fairest way to do it. um, Rakesh said, "Why were you rejected from companies despite being a Cambridge graduate?" Well, like I said, it came the Cambridge degree just gets me in the door. I was rejected for one company rejected me because they didn't think that I'd work well in a team, which I mean, I can't say I agree with this. It was really nice to get feedback from them about why they rejected me instead of just this blank rejection. It was a little bit personal. I think I definitely did badly in the interview. I didn't give them a good impression of myself. I knew that as soon as I came out. But it was one of my first interviews. I was still struggling to explain why I left my last job. I hadn't quite put that into words. It was difficult to articulate the thoughts and feelings that I had in my head. I got rejected from another place for not having the right experience. They just wanted somebody more experienced. Um, Similar with another place that rejected me, just not being suitable for what they were looking for. Like I just had never worked with the things they wanted, and they were trying to hire somebody who already had the skills and wouldn't have to learn uh, on the job. On that topic, I think that's a bad way to hire. I think it's better to hire really smart people who are really passionate about what they're going to be doing, and then they'll figure out and solve the problems. This is not true for every job in the world. I think this is how you should hire for software development. Obviously, if you're on a really tight budget, you're only hiring one person. There are situations where just hiring somebody who has no experience in what you're doing is a stupid idea. Certainly, if you're hiring a few people, you're just trying to grow a team. I think it's silly just to hire people who already know the language and the tools that you happen to use at the moment. Anyway, that's kind of unrelated. I'm not bitter or anything about that rejection. What languages do you use on the job? So I don't want to spend too long talking about what I'm doing at Monzo. I think I can talk about this another time, but it's all Go. Golang, Google's language. It's a really nice language. I enjoy working with it. I did a little bit of it before at Grays and at a test actually. Not tons, enough to be able to do the job. I've learned so much though in the last couple of months. What else have we got here? I don't think I'll ever be able to do a stream without people just asking about university. Like I'm years past university now. I graduated in 2015. And I'm probably not the best source of knowledge for this anymore to give you advice on applications. Things will have changed a lot. Well, maybe a little bit. Not much changes in Cambridge. Um, but I'll never escape this, will I? How many jobs in total did I apply for? I can't remember, but I've got a good list of everywhere that I interviewed with, everywhere I applied to. I kept good notes on all these companies, so if they phoned me out of the blue, I could just pull up everything that I'd told them before and what stage I was at and who I'd spoken to. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I made 12 applications in between leaving a test and now, I guess. I got rejected by 3, and I got offers from 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 offers. I turned down one of them pretty much immediately before I had the Monzo offer, just because I I didn't want to. I didn't want to work there. Um, And yeah, like I said earlier, I was ultimately deciding between two. I don't think I want to say which companies these were. I don't think that would really help me or them. But they're the numbers. I think also 12 was like the maximum I could manage at one time. They weren't all happening synchronously. I got rejected from some, then started new ones. And like I said, some never got back to me. But I wouldn't have wanted to apply to anymore. I got to a stage where I was just sitting waiting for people to get back to me and not making any more applications towards the end. Uh, Otherwise, it would have just been unmanageable, and I wouldn't have been able to really focus on the one I did want, which ultimately turned out to be Monza. Smart is. I scrolled away from the thing I was starting to read. I'm sorry. So somebody questioned why I said smart. I think, and I saw that they said it was subjective. So I said it's good to hire smart people. That's very it's not very well defined. Uh, you're right. I think I was intentionally vague with that. It is very difficult hiring people. My point was not just to hire, like if you've got a Java application and you're hiring somebody new, don't just get somebody who's really good at Java. Get somebody who's really good at like solving the types of problems you might work with. Somebody who's just like generally good at software development, not necessarily particularly good at Java. I don't think I'm explaining this particularly well, but I hope that you understand my point. You want somebody who is passionate and motivated as well. So smart doesn't cover all of these things. And somebody who's like good at communication, works well in a team, maybe has leadership qualities, lots of other things to consider. Yes. Um, People are asking about food. People are asking whether I was going to be live streaming myself cooking. No, maybe one day, not tonight. I will try to do another episode of Cooking with Jake though, sometime soon. The CEO of Monzo came to Cambridge to give a talk. Really nice guy. I didn't know that, but that's cool. He is a really nice guy. Stop the drug abuse, Jake. For the record, I'm no problem of drug abuse here. There's there's a lot to read through. um, I think one day I need to get somebody to like just pick out the questions for me. Be a full-time YouTuber. The problem with this is I vlog about like the non-YouTube things that I do, like having a job. And if I didn't have a job, then I'd have no content for YouTube. I'm pretty happy with YouTube being a hobby and software development being my primary career. Have you considered working in a bank? And Monzo is a bank. I do work in a bank. I never imagined myself working in a bank. I wasn't looking for uh, something in finance. None of the other applications I made were in fintech. But I'm really enjoying it, and maybe I should have considered it sooner. I admit Monzo is not a typical bank. It's very different, but I do enjoy the fact that it is a bank. There's a lot of really interesting stuff to learn. The whole banking financial domain that I've have no knowledge in previous and so far, and because I've never worked in it previously, just gives me a ton of interesting stuff to learn. Have any of your interviewers confronted you about your videos? They have in the past. Um, it's on my CV that I make YouTube videos and how many subscribers I've got. I think it's an interesting thing to talk about. It's something that makes me stand out. It's something I'm proud of. Uh, and I do make some videos about programming, so it's quite relevant. Certainly in terms of being able to like teach people and explain things. So it does come up in a lot of interviews. It's never a problem. It's never like a negative thing. It's always something that they're interested in learning more about. What can be written with Go? Please don't ask your questions multiple times. It's not nice on anybody else or me. I guess you can write anything in Go. You can write anything in any language. It's very useful for web applications, though, particularly microservices. It's a really small language. It's got a good set of features built in that help with web development, so you don't need to depend on a lot of libraries from third parties. It's also super fast to run. Will the stream be available after? It should be. As far as I'm aware, this will become a normal YouTube video as soon as I'm finished. So yes. Any regrets about how you went about leaving previous jobs and the process of being unemployed? I don't think so, because it's worked out really well. I'm not sure I'd do it again. It's slightly stressful not having a job. I think ultimately it was for the best for me. It would be hard to say to myself, I'm going to leave with nothing lined up again. It's a scary situation to put yourself in. But it worked out well. And if I suppose if I was in the position again where I could do it, like financially, etc., I probably should. Whether I will is a different matter. It was also nice to have a break. I didn't have much of a break. I had a few days in between grades and starting a test. It's nice to have like many weeks off, and that was really great. Again, I recognize that it's a very privileged situation to be in, and not everyone can just take 2 months off. I appreciate that. I get it. People are going to ask what Jake got for his GCSEs until he's dead. Yes, I think they are. 5 A stars and 3 A's. 4 A stars at A level. And a 2-1 in my degree. There are so many questions that are just not relevant here, guys. Do you work in C#? No, not at all. It's all Go. Are you nervous about switching from being a PHP to Go developer? No, not at all, actually. I'd worked with Go before. I wasn't totally new to the language. I think a lot of the skills are transferable, and I like to think of myself as a good software engineer rather than a good PHP developer. That's the thing I wanted to learn from Grace. Not PHP, but software development, and then just apply that to whatever language or piece of software that I'm working on. And I think I'm doing okay. It's fine. I'm not having major problems with the language. Like I said, it's a super small, simple language anyway. Give me a minute to catch up with some of these questions. I maybe should have just got people to ask them in advance. Learnings for next time. My commute is about 45 minutes to Monzo. Have you ever used Erlang? No, I haven't. Not at all. It's on my list of my massive list of things to read about and learn. I was kind of expecting I was going to talk more about the process of finding a job. Seems like people aren't too interested in that, and are more interested in my new job. I will talk about it in a lot more detail in the next couple of weeks, and there will be a vlog soon. I'm not going to commit to a date of my first few days at Monzo, at least. I did film when I started. I'm just, as usual, a little bit behind. As soon as I started a full-time job again, I ran out of time to edit videos. It was really nice having so much time to put into YouTube through December and January. I wish I could have more of that. I think what I'd really like to do someday is work a 4-day week, so I have one day I can dedicate to other things like YouTube, like my own endeavors, which is YouTube. But I can't do that at the minute. It's more of a long-term goal. What are your thoughts on current software engineering hiring processes? This is a good question. I had very different interview experiences between different companies. The typical software engineering interview is you get put at a whiteboard and you're told to solve a problem, like a computer science problem, or you might be given some paper or laptop or whatever, and you're asked to like write out an algorithm or do some complex data structure manipulation, or just solve a tricky problem that you'd never actually get in real life. And I don't think they're very good interview questions. If somebody comes to me and asks about something that I learned at uni in a lot of detail but haven't thought about for 2 years, I'm just not going to remember. If you ask me about a particular algorithm, I probably can't remember, especially with the pressure of the interview. But I could look it up. I could just go and look at my own notes, the Wikipedia article, any website that explains it, and remind myself in 5 or 10 minutes how it works. Asking me to recall this information without any chance to prepare is just pointless because I can't do it. Not many people can do it. So then you're just rewarding people who, I guess, have good memories or happened to revise the right topics before the interview, or knew what you were going to ask, because you always ask the same questions in interviews, which most companies, I think, are guilty of. They have like a question or a small set of questions that they ask everybody. And if you've learned what that is, you can prepare and you can do really well. I didn't get any interviews that were this extreme where they just asked me to like write out an algorithm. I got a few where they'd ask me to like design a system like architecturally, and I think that is an okay thing to do like on a whiteboard, because that's much more representative of what you do in your job. You don't have to remember specific implementation details of algorithms. It would be like, I'm going to create these services, they're going to be responsible for these things, they're going to communicate using RPC, they're going to have a data store which is shared, or they're going to have their own data stores, and it needs to have these properties. It doesn't really matter what it would be, whether it's like MySQL or Cassandra or whatever else exists, I don't know. But just understanding the requirements and what you'd need out of the system. And these are things that are good to test people on, without expecting them to remember stupid details that they learned at university and haven't needed since. So that I appreciate interviews like that more, and you obviously get a lot of interviews which are just more personal. They just ask you about yourself and what you're interested in, what you do in your spare time. I think those interviews can be useful. You get a lot of inexperienced interviewers. I don't mean this in an offensive way. I have interviewed people before with next to no experience, and it's really difficult to interview people. So sometimes I do wonder what value that they're going to get out of the questions they're asking me. But I guess as the interviewee, that's not really my concern. Generally, interviews are pretty broken, I think. You get interviewers who are struggling to extract information. You got this tradition of asking difficult questions that like normal people just can't answer, especially under pressure. But I did have some good interviews. I thought the Monzo interview process was very slow. It could have been a lot faster. It was definitely the slowest that I went through. It was very thorough, which is good. But the actual interviews I had, the two on-site interviews I had in the day I was in the office, were good interviews, I thought. Like, I was able to express myself quite well, and perform, I thought, decently in the interview. And there was like a good debate in the interview about various topics. We talked about like security. We talked about um, basic internet concepts, like the lower level stuff. We did some systems design stuff on a whiteboard, which was based on the coding challenge that I'd previously done, and talked a lot about concurrency and distributed systems because that's a big thing at Monzo. It's really important. So I'm learning that people can pay to ask questions. This is a new feature since I last streamed, but I suppose these people deserve an answer. How do you keep yourself confident without a job? Asks Brijesh. I I didn't struggle with this too much. I felt stressed a lot because I was going a long time without a job and I was like hemorrhaging money because rent in London is just absurdly expensive. And I had no income for a good few months. So that stressed me out a lot. I think it was just up to me to be confident and know that I had the experience and the skills, and it was down to me to do well in interviews and show other people this. I think getting feedback from the interviewers helps, even if it's negative. If it's negative, you know what you need to improve, and you can be like, that's fixable. I'm not going to fail every interview ever. If you get rejected from a job and you don't know why, that it's getting rejected anyway is really it's upsetting, it's depressing, it's a horrible feeling getting told you're not good enough for this job, or we don't want you for this job, or we don't think you're the right fit for this job. But if you get told why and you're like, oh, well, I can just do that differently next time, or you think, fair enough, I wasn't a good fit for this job, I wouldn't have been happy there, then it's much easier to 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 accept the rejection. Um, but even if you did well, you can ask for feedback, and they could point out some good things you did, and that just makes you feel better. What other questions have people paid for? Some of these just tell me an amount of money with. I don't know whether you lot can see this, but there's money with no question. I'm sorry if there's meant to be a question that I'm not reading. There are a lot of things happening in this chat. I apologize about this stream being unstructured. You're right, it is. Next time I'll do a better job of picking the questions in advance. I find places never give honest feedback, says Edmundo Studios. They might not. You can't force them to give honest feedback. You can ask. I like to think most companies would be willing to give you it. There's no reason not to. It is beneficial for everybody. But you're right, they might not. Are you still unemployed? No, to reiterate, I'm not. I've got a job at Monzo. What sites for getting a job? What source? So I applied to Monzo because somebody who I used to work with works there. Same with the Financial Times, um, and same with Triptease, which was another company that I applied to. So for me, that worked out the best, obviously, because I got the job at Monzo. I tried Talent.io and Hired.com. Didn't have great success on there. I think they're good, worth trying. There's also like job site Stack Overflow jobs is okay. Um, Same as Glassdoor, a lot of similar things on there. You just have to use all of them, I think, is the best strategy, and put a lot of time into filtering out the jobs. What you can do is if you just check if you go to these sites and sort by newest and just check every day. There'll be a couple of new ones every day, and you can really keep on top of it that way. Otherwise, there's just like thousands, and you don't know where to start. You have to put a lot of time in up front to to find the ones you like, which already exist. But once you've done that initial work, then it's much easier onwards to just look at the new ones. Did you have any pre-recorded video interviews? No, I didn't. I've never had one of those actually. I've seen other people do them. They do look quite awkward. um, I guess that I wouldn't find it too challenging because I do videos all the time. So practice is the only advice I could possibly give, given I haven't done this. Just get used to talking to nobody. You get quite good at it. Do you ever fancy applying to companies like Google, Amazon, etc.? Asks Austin. Um, I've never really been sure. I didn't apply for any of those huge companies this time, and I haven't done in the past. I think I applied to a few when I was still at uni, and looking for a graduate job. I didn't. I think I just got rejected by them all, or never heard back from some. But I've just always assumed that I wouldn't want to be in somewhere so huge, and I prefer like medium-sized companies. I do want to try it someday because I might be wrong about this. I thought I would like a smaller company, and I didn't. I was wrong about that. But so far, I've been really happy at like companies with a few hundred employees. Companies with like thousands, tens of thousands scare me. Also, it's really hard to get into these companies, and I might not be able to do it. I don't know. I feel like as a graduate, especially from Cambridge, you got a chance. It's still super competitive. Um, Once you're not a graduate, though, it becomes a little bit harder unless you're really, really good because these companies hire a lot of graduates. Um, but I don't have a lot of data to back this up. It's just kind of my general impression. I've got a 4 hour interview coming up, says Roshin. I'm so sorry about these pronunciations. What do they do to you for 4 hours? Um, I mean, I don't know exactly what your interviews will be like. When I've had multiple interviews in a row like this, or like a big block of interviews, each one you usually have like an hour or half an hour with different people, and you keep swapping and going to a new room, or new people come in and talk to you, and they get quite repetitive. What I found is these people don't talk to each other in between, and they all come in fresh, knowing nothing about you, and ultimately ask the same questions. And it feels like a massive waste of time because they could optimize this. But I think the theory is they don't want to be biased by what a previous interviewer has thought. Um, I'm not convinced it's the best way to interview somebody. I think it would be better just to have more people listen to you say it once instead of having to repeat yourself 5 times. So that might happen. If you've got 4 hours, you're probably going to have to answer the same questions more than once. What is working in London like? Asks Snip Snap Doggo. Great name. It's good. I mean, London is big. It's busy. It's noisy. It's polluted. It's all the things you'd expect from London, from a capital city. There are a lot of opportunities for software developers here. I mean, it's very different, I imagine, to what it's like in West Coast US, Silicon Valley type places. The tech scene is just something else entirely over there. But it's good. There are a lot of really bright people working here, a lot of really motivated people, a lot of people to learn from, and a lot of people I've enjoyed working with at all of my jobs so far. So I suppose if you are looking for a job in tech, in software development in this country, London, I mean, is the best place you can come. Every startup, every tech company is here, really. I was going to finish at 9. I appreciate that I started a little bit late, so I'll keep answering a few more questions if anyone has anything interesting. What do you like more, university life or job life? Um, I don't know. I enjoyed university while I was there. I have very fond memories of university, but I wouldn't want to go and do it again. So, like right now, I prefer job life. But comparing how I feel now to how I felt at the time while I was at university, if you know what I mean, uh, comparable. University, I think, is more exciting, more interesting. Every day is a little bit different. This is how I managed to make vlogs out of it, and I can't really do it out of work. So maybe at the time I enjoyed that more. Maybe I'm looking back and just remembering the better parts. While I was there, it was super stressful. There was a ton of stuff at Cambridge that I hated and didn't enjoy. So I'm not too sure about that one really. But I'm quite happy now, so I have no complaints. How do you deal with nerves before a job university? um, I wish I had a great answer for this. Everybody gets nervous. Everybody is in the same boat. Not so much when you start a job because usually you're like the only person who's new, but everybody's gone through the same thing. Everybody knows how you feel and they're mindful of that. Um, so ultimately, there's nothing to worry about. You just have to remember things are going to work out okay. Um, Doing something new, new job, or starting university is just a scary experience. But hopefully, you'll find a lot of positives in it when you start. Um, Try to be prepared, I guess, if there's anything that you think you should do in advance. But things will be fine. Everybody goes through it, and you'll find things you like. You'll meet new people. It'll be great. Do you have any tips for pair programming interviews? Um, do I have any tips? So I've done a few pair programming interviews, and this is where you sit in a room and they give you a laptop, or you have to take your own laptop, and they ask you to implement something, and you work with somebody. They don't just necessarily watch you; um, they'll work with you, and this is something you might do a lot in the job. Two people sat at one computer. I have mixed opinions on pair programming. A lot of the people trying to hire for software developers right now love it. Like the engineering managers at these companies are obsessed with pair programming. I've met people who have their developers pair program 8 hours a day. Like they don't do anything other than pair programming. They never sit at their own computer. That's always like two of them at one. I think that's a stupid idea. I don't think that's a productive way to work. Suddenly you developing something costs twice as much in terms of developers. It's a really good way to learn something if you're doing something for the first time and the other person knows it, work with them, pair on it, and you can learn everything from them and talk to them. It's really great. If both of you could do it easily on your own, it's stupid to put two people on the same task. But you will do this in interviews a lot. And I think in interviews it's fine. I suppose so. I don't know. My advice would have been think out loud a lot and just talk about what you're doing and question things, debate things. I still kind of believe this is a useful thing to do. However, I did get rejected from a job because I was told I was too like stubborn and argumentative, and I thought I was just making the interview more interesting by like debating everything. Just I was doing it for the sake of it because I thought they were interesting conversations to have, instead of just writing code and not explaining anything or just doing what they said. That didn't seem very useful, but they didn't like it, so I don't know. I don't want to give advice here that I believe if it's not actually true in reality. Though I did pair programming interviews with other companies and they were okay. I didn't do any with Monzo, but I have done some pair programming while I've been at Monzo. And it's pair programming is a difficult thing to do at first. It's difficult to get right. It's hard to program while somebody watches you. Um, and equally, it's hard to be the person who watches and be useful and not be irritating. How long have I been at Monzo? About 2 months. What do you think of doing computer science with maths at Cambridge? I get asked this question so many times, and I always say you have to have a really good reason for doing it. And liking computer science and maths and not being able to decide between the two of them is not a good enough reason to pick computer science with maths. It's quite like a specific course. Not many people do it. You do a lot of maths in computer science anyway, just like the normal computer science courses, all theoretical maths. And I don't really know what the right answer is for why you should do computer science with maths. I guess you'd want a much stronger focus on maths, probably. I don't know. I've always just kind of tried to put people off it a bit, but you'd be much better off speaking to Cambridge now because I know the courses have changed since I did them. I'm giving out outdated information now, which is not something I want to be doing. How do you keep motivated in a 9 to 5 job? It's really difficult. It's sometimes I'm not. A lot of the time, it's I'm not. You have to try to find interesting things to do. You need to balance doing the less interesting things with things you enjoy. You need to try to learn stuff. I think learning things is one of the most important things to do. Also, teach other people stuff. Make it a really collaborative environment to work in. Make sure the environment is like nice and happy, somewhere you want to be, tolerant, flexible. Work with everybody to make it that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you kind of have no choice if it's your job. This has always been my attitude, and I know that it doesn't really work for other people. Same with revising, like how I motivated myself. I just kind of forced myself to, and remembered in the back of my mind that it was ultimately for my own good. But I would just really force myself and give myself no option and sit down and do it. And I would remember like it's completely in my control to do this, and to just exercise my free will. How long do you want to stay at Monzo for? So I stayed at my first job 2 years. That was sort of something I kind of planned from the beginning. My second job 2 months, something I didn't plan from the beginning. This time I have no plan. I'm past my first job. I won't be desperate to leave after like a set amount of time. I have no plans to leave. Obviously, everything's going really well. I'm really enjoying it. So hopefully I'll be there for like a significant amount of time. but honestly, I have no idea. I don't even know where Monzo will be in 2 years. It's a startup after all. Austin asks that he says, "I saw you had a job with a software company called Aspire when you were 16." Yeah, that started out as work experience. Like we were forced to do work experience, and my family knew the person that owned the company, so I ended up there. It was really convenient for me. I was really lucky to be able to do that, and then they invited me back to like work for them sort of part time afterwards, and I did that over the next couple of summers, which was really good. It looked really good on my CV, I think, initially. Not very relevant now because I, like you said, I was 16, 17. Um, but it was a really good experience. I really encourage people to do work experience. I know it's hard to find places. Um, but if you get the opportunity, go for it. It's really good. What if Monzo goes bankrupt? Then obviously I'll have to find another job. I, I I'd survive. It would be a shame though. I hope that doesn't happen. How did you get the first graduate job? So I keep forgetting to read people's names. I hope you don't mind. This was from Jez. Um, I applied to quite a few. It was around October 2014, so like the beginning of my final year, to start a year later. So it was like way in advance. And it's kind of what you have to do for a graduate job. Everybody, this is just what everybody does. You have to match. Otherwise, the graduate jobs disappear to other people. They're all given out by Christmas. Uh, so apply early, apply to a few. And I got offered a job from Grays. It was actually my first offer that I got, I think. Um, and I liked it, so I took it. Worked out okay. Do you think being unemployed for a while was good for your mental health? I think it had positive and negative implications. It was negative because I had a lot of time with nothing to do. I felt very unmotivated some days. Um, I suddenly lost my sleeping pattern. I'm really bad at keeping that up if I don't have to get up for work. So I was sleeping into like 10, 11 a.m. Wasn't being particularly productive during the day. And was feeling more and more stressed about not having a job as time went on. So they were the bad things. The good parts were it was apart from feeling a bit stressed, I wasn't too bad. Like I wasn't in a I wasn't like in a literally difficult bad situation. Like I wasn't going to lose my flat. I wasn't nothing bad was going to happen. Um, it was, but nevertheless it was slightly stressful. Uh, but ultimately it was really relaxing, and I had loads of time to focus on YouTube, and I had loads of time to figure out what I did want from a job, and I had loads of time just to reflect on my last jobs and think about what I want in life and where I want to go in the next couple of years. And I think ultimately it was more positive than negative. The break was it was what I needed. It was obviously the longest break that I'd had since like a university holiday. But even those were never a true break because I always had loads of revision to do. I would spend like 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day revising every day of holidays over Cambridge, over Christmas, over Easter, and over summer to a large extent. So it was really nice to have a break with nothing to do. Why did you think your initial Cambridge interview went badly? Asks Austin. Um, Such a long time ago now. So I had two interviews. I had one which was very much about like, what do you like doing? Talking about myself. I remember it was an interview with Andy Rice, who was my director of studies for 3 years. Great guy. And he asked me to like draw out a timetable, like a schedule of what I do with my time during the week. And I didn't get the point of it, and I just felt like I was missing something the whole time. And I came out of the interview being like, "That was a disaster. I didn't know what he was asking me. There was obviously a trick that I just wasn't getting." But there wasn't. It wasn't a trick interview. It wasn't out to get me. Um, so it was fine. Then the second interview was more about maths, and I remember being asked about like I said that I played the piano. I think it was in my personal statement somewhere. And he brought it up, and I was trying to justify why I wrote it and trying to make it relevant. And I tried to link it with maths, and he asked me a question, and I couldn't solve it, um, which kind of proved that I didn't know what I was talking about, and I was just making rubbish up to try to justify writing about music on my CV. And I thought that might have ruined it. And that coupled with this first interview of not really knowing what I was meant to be doing, thought it went terribly, but this is not the case. I've also had interviews in my life where I thought they went great, then I've been rejected. So you never know. Um, okay, I'll answer one or two more questions. What are your hobbies when you're not in the workplace? Really easy one, YouTube. I don't do a lot of other stuff really. I also write code in my spare time. Um, I enjoy it. That's why it's my job. I don't write code for work. I write code for my own stuff. People are asking me about specific colleges at Cambridge. I went to Queen's, and I can't honestly give good advice about other colleges. It's certainly a topic for another time. So I'm going to politely not get into talking about the differences between colleges. Does the idea of academia not interest you? Asks Jake. Um, Not me, another Jake in the chat. It used to. I used to imagine myself doing a master's and even a PhD at one point, when I was a bit younger. Once I'd done 3 years of university, that felt like enough, certainly for now. I did imagine myself getting a job for a few years and going back and doing a master's. It's not totally off the cards. I might at some point, but it's not likely anytime soon. Not in the next 2 years, I don't think. Maybe I'll get really sick of having a job and I want to go back. Right now, I'm quite content with working instead of studying. Um, I think it was difficult to justify sticking with academia because you have to be like really committed to something quite specific to do, certainly to do a PhD and even to do a master's. And I just didn't feel that level of commitment and passion for something in computer science. I wanted to do more practical stuff. I wanted to do software development, and that is not really computer science. Um, so that's why I left. Also, my whole life had been in education and academia, and I wanted to do something different. I needed something. I needed a change, and now that I've left, and I've got a very different lifestyle. I think it would be hard to go back. I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, it's not on the roadmap in the short term. But I'm not going to totally rule it out. Would you ever move out of London? Um, yes, yes. I don't want to live in London for my whole life. I think also it'd be a shame not to travel more. I would like to work in different countries, but this is not something that I've planned out in much detail. It's I'm going to be in London. I think when I first moved to London, I was like, I'll be here for 3 years and then do something else. I've been here 2.5 years now, and I have no plans to leave. I mean, I've signed a lease on this flat for the rest of this calendar year, so I'm not going anywhere soon. But no, I want to leave London sometime just to try other cities. One final question. I think this is a good one, actually. Anthony asks, do you think employers get put off employing you because you make YouTube videos? So I talked a little bit about this earlier, about how it comes up in interviews a lot, and I think it's an interesting topic to talk about, making videos. Not many people do this. I mean, not many of their applicants probably do this. I know there are a lot of people on YouTube making YouTube videos, which is really great. But he says perhaps if they think you might speak negatively about their company online, and this really is a risk. I'll make this the last question. So apologies to anyone else who I haven't been able to answer the questions of, because this is an important topic. I think I was really pushing the limits a bit with my unemployed vlogs while I was trying to find a job, because I was talking about which companies I was applying to. I was talking about their interview processes. I was talking about being rejected. Like I was publicly saying, I've been rejected from this job. I'm unemployed, and I quit my last job after 2 months. And obviously, interviewers are going to look at these videos on my CV, and the research candidates, and they'll find my videos and they'll watch my most recent ones. One company that I was interviewing with contacted somebody they knew at a company that rejected me, and they knew that they'd rejected me because I put it on YouTube, and they asked why, and they asked more about me. So it's a risky situation I was putting myself in, I think. Why did I do it? Because it was the truth. I did get rejected. I was unemployed. I didn't honestly believe that these were reasons that a company shouldn't employ me. If I didn't tell them these things, I wouldn't have been honest. And being open and transparent and honest is generally just the best approach to life. I think you can't go too far wrong if you follow these principles. Monzo, coincidentally, is, as a company, a very transparent company, both internally and externally, and I think it's great. And I apply this to my personal life as well. So some employees might be put off by this. This is true, but I'm not putting anything which is like objectively controversial on YouTube. Some YouTubers do. I don't think I do. I'm honest on YouTube. I make videos about things that have actually happened. It's all very factual. It's all quite mundane, really, in the grand scheme of things. And I don't believe that it's a good reason to not employ somebody. Obviously, I don't control people's decisions, but I like the idea of being honest and transparent as much as I can. So yeah, maybe it does negatively affect me, but everything's worked out pretty well for me so far. It's something to be wary of. I respect other people's privacy a lot. This is why you don't see anybody else in my YouTube videos. I wouldn't, like, I appreciate I am maybe putting myself at risk by being so open on YouTube, and I wouldn't want to like inflict this on somebody else. If they want to make their own YouTube videos and talk about their personal lives and their professional lives, their careers, they're free to do that, but I wouldn't want to do it for them. So I just stick to my own life, so I can control it. I have full control of what I put on YouTube. And somebody else who appears in my video doesn't have that control, and they should be able to control what they share and what they don't share online. So I wouldn't want to take that away from them. But yeah, just being honest and telling the truth with people, it generally works out pretty well. And on that note, I think it is time to end. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. How many people are watching here? 579. That's insane. I apologize that this has been a bit unstructured and chaotic. I'll do a better job next time of just planning the stream a little bit better. Sorry also for being a little bit late, but I was late getting home from my job, which I have now. So like I said, the next video that I'll upload will be about my first few days at Monzo. So that should be pretty cool. Look forward to that. and I'll do another live stream and talk a bit more in depth about my job, because I focused more this time on finding a job. But that process is over. Don't have to go through it anymore. Really happy to be working again. Thank you, everybody, and good night.